The development of my role now into mixed garage and why I've gone there, the guys have been on a trajectory of serious growth over the last 8 years, and they're moving into places like eBay and Amazon and beyond, I guess. So my remit now is not to focus on how can we grow this in Ireland and the UK. We're having phone calls about Russia, about Poland, Australia, and every country in between. The reason that these vehicles, I guess, are so exciting is that they're proven. They already have an audience that would be so difficult to try and tap into otherwise. It would be so costly. And the other side of it is that they give great metrics. So if I'm looking at customer service, the feedback on eBay, if anyone is familiar with it, can be quite daunting. Someone can say to you, that was terrible. I'll never buy from you again. So the idea is that you minimize the number of those defects, and the metric that eBay uses, 5 elements of a transaction scored 1 to 5. For every 200 transactions you can only have 5 scores of 3 or less. Now that's a fairly aggressive metric, but they've measured that now for nearly 15 years, and they know that the cost of trying to get that buyer back onto the site is greater than the cost of the product that they would have purchased. What does that allow us to do in simple terms, I guess? It allows me to look at 4 things: my communication, my postage, my dispatch time, and how well I describe my item. And if you look at what is critical to e-commerce, it's all those elements. The content that you put in there. So how did you describe your item? Were you honest? Was your photography good enough? Do you even have access to photography? And if not, where can you get it? So there are resources that you can look to get that kind of work done. There's websites like elance.com where you can put work out to tender if you haven't got that kind of expertise yourself. The communication piece really measures your customer service team and puts them under severe scrutiny. I think it's so transparent that there's no room for hiding there, and it's one area that when you're taking feedback from your customer service tools, you can reverse it and actually use them as marketing callouts. If you're getting a lot of questions in about particular products, you know that you can start making changes to them to address those issues. It might be that the content isn't good enough. So there's a huge amount of information that constantly comes through the eBay channels and Amazon that allows you to make those changes. And I think that's key. You have to be receptive to those changes and know how to make them critically as well. They are such huge enablers for business. Going back to the fact that these guys have scale, the cost of setting up your own site can be quite vast. I'm not saying that eBay and Amazon are cheap, but they're cheaper by comparison. And if you have something that you think is untested or is quite niche, these are the places that people are going looking for them. And they're not on their own. There are other sites out there, marketplace sites that you can list onto. It may be a footprint into Europe that you might not normally access. That sort of scale doesn't exist, and if you're unsure, again, it's a great test bed for your products. Because eBay, it's something you can change around quite a lot. It's something that you have to know your business intrinsically well to be able to perform well on eBay because you're so exposed. That, for me, is a great test bed for any e-commerce company to see, can they feasibly get product to the people that they want, and in a timely fashion. And I've just kind of, I forgot on the presentation there for a while. The iterate and improve. I mean, constant optimization. I mean, you can't stand still. Technology moves much quicker than we can. And it's trying to ensure that the processes become as strong as they can, that they can hold up to technology. But you can't stand still. Once you think you do something right, there will be something else that is falling down. And too often it's very easy to focus on the positive figures. I think if you feel you got yourself to a level of scale and you can't make the next step, look at some of the underperforming metrics on your site. Why are people leaving when they come to certain pages, or why are you not getting traffic at all? Are the AdWords that you buy across Google or other media, are they correct? Are they optimized? And that's something that shifts on a daily basis. The other consideration is mobile. It's frightening how quick that mobile is going. Using, again, eBay as my benchmark, when I left in 2010, the market volume sales that went through the eBay channel and mobile were about 500 million. The CEO, John Donoghue, announced this year they expect it to be between $5 and $8 billion in sales, that gives you some sort of an insight into the level of scale that's going on there. But just some of the Irish metrics, I mean, even at home, 60% of online spend in Ireland is going abroad. So have you got a .ie site, a .com, .co.uk? Have you optimized that for the market that's currently looking for your products, and do some research on that? I think it's quite key. 80% plus of people at home are doing research. I mean, the figures there, 99%, ROPO on the second last one there, research online, purchase offline. It's a Google acronym, but 99% of people are actually making that research before they come into your store. So it's about having a presence, and this comes down to what type of presence do you want. Do you want to give people information that they can go to a competitor, or do you want to give them the opportunity to come into the main entrance, I guess, to pick up on what Richard was saying? And it's really digging into that kind of detail that will give you the upper hand. 53% of people say online adverts make them more likely to influence the purchase decision. Again, that comes down to you needing to have a presence on there to be found. There's a lot of traffic going through that site on any given day. And I think critically now, 20% of all shopping in Ireland is done online. So it's becoming part of that user journey is something that you need to understand, and understanding how long that journey actually takes. Some people in fashion, for example, the average journey length will be 30 days. So from when someone decides to look for diesel blue jeans, it could be 30 days before they return back. And over 70% of those people actually come back to the same term they would have originally looked for, whether they go to Facebook to look at pictures, or they go to friend sites, they go into stores, they try it on, they come back online, they do the price comparison. That's the average length of time. So you've got to consider quite a few things when you're putting your product up. And that's not easy. The real consideration there is you've got to understand how much it's costing you to acquire that customer and what their lifetime value is. That's a really great buzzword at the minute, but it's how much is it going to cost you to get new customers versus retain the customers that you have ultimately. And that again comes back to one of the points I made at the start, is how do you differentiate yourself in a market that does seem quite flooded. It takes time. I think you have to really understand your customer base and listen to them as well, and that's where social media can play a huge part in what you do. But again, you need to remain agile. So in trying to keep it simple, I think marketplaces are a great way to try and start your business off that supports your own website. The costs are variable in quite a lot of ways, so you're not looking at a monthly fixed cost going down the drain. You know that it's a measure of your success month on month, how much that you're going to be paying. The thing to look for there is that you need to react to feedback. You need to listen to people, you need to take on board what they're saying and make changes based on that feedback, not on what you think is right. Marketing and advertising, making sure it's targeted. This is probably one of the most measured ways that you can get return on investment in your business. It's slightly different to traditional media, but you can start tying those campaigns into your Google AdWords campaigns as well, and start measuring how they perform as well. Like if you have an ad on the radio or on TV, you can measure very quickly, did people start looking for your website then or your products based on something that they've seen on TV, and you can watch for the relative value in that type of advertising. The difficulty here is that this is a difficult skill set to get, and I'll come back to skills in just a minute, but centralize. I mean, the other thing that you can look at is benefiting from economies of scale. I think the co-op is a great example of businesses coming together with a shared expertise that will offer benefits of better pricing. So one of the things that slightly passed us by, if you have to use a UK agency, they can be very, very expensive, and Irish agencies have had a tendency in the past to go with very Irish economies of scale. And I think they're looking at it differently now, in that Irish businesses can't afford to pay those rates. They're now looking for better value. To give some sort of a sense of what I mean by that, if you wanted to take over the homepage of YouTube for a day in the UK, it's going to cost you somewhere around £95,000. It will deliver traffic that you probably wouldn't get in 2 or 3 months. To do the same thing in Ireland, Google are finding it hard to sell that space at €7,500. The gulf in that kind of space is enormous. And that's something to consider when people are pricing for you. So I would certainly say challenge the pricing that you get and make people really understand the value that they're bringing to you. Going back to the skills, I've done a bit of work with Joan in the last year or so, and the skills deficit is something that we really need to try and redefine. One of the really key things for me is trying to get someone to help me trade product across. I'll probably launch 18 to 19 different marketplaces with my new employer at the minute. That's multiple languages, it's multiple time zones, it's multiple currencies, and I need someone to really aggressively trade that. Looking at traditional retail, where there have been a lot of job losses, merchandisers and buyers from that background understand product and understand numbers well, and I've talked to Gordon Newman, the e-commerce head at Lifestyle as well. He'd certainly agree that that type of skill set is absolutely critical for merchandising products online. They know what people need, they know what kind of product detail goes in there, and they're hell-bent by these numbers. They're really driven. And I think refocusing or reskilling people is something that's maybe overlooked while we wait for the schools like the schools in Monaghan to come through, where they've got such a great penetration in broadband. It's terrific. Getting those kids trained in the right type of skills are going to be key. I don't think it stops there. I think that there needs to be a push on, and again, I know it's work that we're doing, to try and train people in the right types of discipline for e-commerce, because it is not digital marketing. It is very unsexy, it is grunt work, it is tough, it is boring, and it requires people that can look to the long-term picture of this and see the value in it. And again, that comes back to being able to buy into strategy. What's inspired me over the last couple of years is that I've been lucky enough to be positioned alongside people who have got great vision. It allows you then to go and execute on the strategy that they have. The type of growth that the guys have in Mixed Garage right now was very inspiring, but then you get into the environment where I remember the first morning I went in, one of the guys in customer service told me that they were sick of coming in on a Monday morning and getting swamped by emails at 9 o'clock, so they took it on themselves to come in at 7 on a Monday to clear the backlog and get in and start the normal work at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. That was my first day and the introduction to the type of people that were involved in the business, and he left me at this point, and I'll leave you with it too. He said, we live or die by the sales that come into this site, so we have to be pretty aggressive in how we approach things. Thanks for listening, hope it was of some use.